Wait. My grandfather's voice cracked across the study, just as my finger slipped beneath the flap of the cream-colored envelope. I froze. For 3 years, my father, Daniel Bennett, had ignored every call, every birthday message, every stupid little text I sent hoping he would finally answer. And now, after all that silence, his name was sitting in the top left corner of an envelope addressed to me. "Grandpa, please," I said, tightening my grip on it. "Don't do this." Charles Whitmore rose slowly from behind his desk. At 78, my grandfather was a billionaire who could make executives rethink decisions with one look. But right then, I didn't care how much power he had. "This is from my dad." "I know." "Then why are you stopping me?" Charles pointed at the envelope. "Because you're looking at his name, instead of looking at what's actually in your hand." I stared at him. "What's wrong?" He came around the desk and tapped the bottom right corner. "Can't you see?" I almost laughed from frustration. All I saw was postage, faint gray markings, and the letter I had waited 3 years to receive. "You've never trusted him," I said. "Whatever happened between you and Dad is between you two. Maybe he finally wants to explain why he left." Charles didn't defend himself. Instead, he switched on the brass reading lamp. "Put it here." Reluctantly, I laid the unopened envelope beneath the light. He handed me a magnifying glass. "Look again." I leaned closer. Beside what I had assumed was an ordinary postal code, was a faint string of printed characters. Numbers. A processing code. And then 3 letters. HFG. "What is that?" I asked. Charles's expression changed. 2 weeks earlier, he explained, the Whitmore family office had received an unusual verification request involving an investment account opened in my name when I was a child. My stomach tightened. "Who sent the request?" Charles looked at the envelope again. "Harrow Financial Group." My eyes dropped back to those 3 tiny letters. HFG. The same initials. I suddenly didn't want to open the envelope quite as badly. "But this is a personal letter," I whispered. "Why would Dad send it through a financial company?" Charles folded his arms. "That," he said quietly, "is exactly what we need to find out before you open it." And standing there with the first message my father had sent me in 3 years, one question drowned out everything else. If Dad had really written to apologize, why was a financial company hiding on the envelope? "There could be an explanation," I said. Grandpa looked at me, but didn't answer. Dad used financial advisors before. Maybe he mailed it from somebody's office. Maybe HFG means nothing. Charles pulled out the chair across from his desk. "You may be right." That surprised me. Then he added, "Open it if you want, but you sign nothing." I sat down and carefully tore the envelope open. The first line nearly broke through every wall I had spent 3 years building. "Ashley, I know I failed you as a father." I stopped breathing for a second. I read on. Dad mentioned the nickname he used when I was little. He wrote about the lake house where he taught me to swim and how I refused to let go of the dock until he promised to stay beside me. Then he mentioned our last argument, the one I had replayed in my head hundreds of times. He wrote that shame had kept him away, that every month made it harder to call, that he wanted one chance to explain himself face to face. I looked up at Grandpa. He remembers everything. Charles said nothing. I kept reading. Then I reached the final paragraph. My excitement faded. Dad asked me to fill out a document enclosed with the letter before contacting him. He called it paperwork needed to close an old family matter. Then came one sentence that made my fingers stop moving. "This is between you and me. Please don't involve Charles." Grandpa noticed my expression. "What does it say?" I unfolded the second sheet. It looked harmless. Name. Address. Date of birth. A few lines of dense wording. Then a signature box at the bottom. "Let me see it," Charles said. I pulled it closer to myself. For 3 years, I had wanted one thing from my father that money could never buy. An explanation. And now Grandpa was standing between me and the first chance I had ever been given to get it. "Dad specifically asked me not to involve you." Charles didn't reach for the page. Instead, he opened a drawer and removed an old envelope. "What is that?" "A birthday letter Daniel sent you when you were 17. He placed it beside the new one. "Compare them." I stared at the handwriting. The wording in both letters sounded like my father. The private memories were real. Even the rhythm of his sentences felt familiar. Then I looked at the signatures. The old one had a sharp upward stroke through the D in Daniel. The new one didn't. I leaned closer. "They're different." "Not enough to prove anything," Charles said. Then his eyes dropped to the bottom of the form. His expression hardened. "What?" He didn't answer. He took out his phone, photographed the page, and immediately made a call. When someone answered, Charles's voice turned cold. "This is Whitmore. Freeze every transaction requiring Ashley Bennett's authorization, effective immediately." I shot to my feet. "Grandpa, what did you see?" He looked at the form again. "Something your father was hoping you wouldn't." Less than an hour later, my father's letter was projected onto a conference room screen. I sat beside Grandpa while his attorney, financial controller, and the Whitmore family office compliance director studied the document I had almost signed without a second thought. "This was supposed to be between me and my father," I said. The compliance director, Marcus Reed, enlarged the bottom section. "I understand, but you need to see this." He highlighted 5 words buried inside the dense print. "Authorized beneficial party consent." I frowned. What does that actually mean? "It means this isn't contact paperwork." Marcus enlarged another paragraph. "Your signature would authorize changes involving an investment vehicle held in your name." I turned toward Grandpa. "What investment vehicle?" Charles hesitated. "An account your grandmother established for you 18 years ago." My chair scraped backward. "How much?" "Ashley." "How much, Grandpa?" "Approximately $4.8 million. For several seconds, nobody spoke. I stared at him. "You knew I had $4.8 million connected to my name. The investments have been managed automatically. The account legally became yours at 25, but you never activated direct control." Marcus interrupted before I could respond. "There's something else." 11 days earlier, Harrow Financial had contacted the family office claiming to represent someone with a financial interest connected to that account. Grandpa's office refused to provide information without my authorization. Then, 3 days later, my father's letter entered Harrow's processing system. My eyes moved from the screen to the cream-colored envelope lying on the table. "No. Ashley. Someone could be using his name." Grandpa nodded once. "That's possible." Then we stopped guessing. I grabbed the letter. At the bottom, Dad had included a phone number. I typed it into my phone and switched on the speaker. 1 ring. 2. 3. "Hello." My entire body went still. 3 years had passed, but I knew that voice. "Dad." Silence. I could hear him breathing. "It's Ashley." "Ashley." My throat tightened. "I got your letter." Another pause. Then Dad apparently realized he wasn't alone. "Who's there with you?" I looked around the conference table. Grandpa, his attorney, some people from the family office. Dad's tone changed instantly. "Ashley, listen to me." "Why?" "Because there are things about this family Charles has never told you." Grandpa remained completely silent. Dad's breathing grew heavier. Then he said the one thing that erased what little reassurance I had left. Asterisk, Ashley, whatever your grandfather told you, don't let him touch that form. I stared at the form on the conference table. Dad, why does seeing me again require my signature? Silence. Ashley, it's complicated. No, it's a simple question. Dad exhaled sharply. Charles has controlled everything in that family for years. There's money in that account that should never have been kept from me. Grandpa didn't react. That bothered Dad more than an argument would have. Charles, Dad snapped, you going to pretend you don't know what I'm talking about? Grandpa leaned toward the phone. Ashley asked you a question. Dad ignored him. Ashley, signing that document doesn't mean you're giving anyone money. It only allows an old financial matter to be corrected. Marcus, the compliance director, picked up his pen. He wrote 6 words on his notepad and slid it toward me. Ask who prepared the letter. I swallowed. Dad, did you write this letter yourself? I gave them the information. Them. Another pause. Who prepared it? The call ended. I stared at my phone. He hung up. Before anyone could respond, Marcus's laptop chimed. He opened the incoming message. His eyebrows lifted. Harrow Financial just withdrew the verification request. Grandpa's attorney immediately called Harrow's compliance department. Within minutes, the pieces began connecting. Daniel Bennett had approached an independent advisor affiliated with Harrow, claiming he possessed a legitimate financial interest in an old family investment. Harrow requested proof. Dad couldn't provide it. Without my authorization, nothing could move forward. So the form was supposed to give him that authorization, I said. Yes, Marcus replied. And the letter. Grandpa's attorney lowered his phone. The advisor helped assemble the package using materials your father supplied. My stomach dropped. What materials? Old correspondence, personal information, copies of previous letters. I looked at the page again. The lake house. My childhood nickname. The memories that had convinced me my father was finally speaking from his heart. Someone had been given pieces of my relationship with him and used them to make the letter believable. Even the slightly wrong signature finally made sense. But one thing didn't. If the account belongs to me, why does Dad think he has any right to the $4.8 million? Grandpa stood. Without answering, he crossed to the safe behind his desk and entered the code. He removed a thick folder. These are the original documents establishing the account. Before he could place them in front of me, his attorney's phone rang. He checked the screen. Harrow Compliance. He answered. For the next 30 seconds, nobody moved. Then he slowly looked at Grandpa. They found out why Daniel needs the money. Grandpa took the original account agreement from the folder and silently slid it across the table toward me. I opened the account agreement. Grandpa pointed to a section dated 18 years earlier. Your grandmother created this exclusively for you. My eyes moved down the page until I found Dad's name. Daniel Bennett, temporary custodian. So he was connected to it. As your custodian while you were a minor, Grandpa said, nothing more. The agreement was painfully clear. Dad's authority expired when I became an adult. He had never owned the money. He had never been entitled to part of it. And he knew that. Grandpa's attorney put his phone down. Harrow discovered Daniel's business is carrying serious debt. He explained that Dad had approached lenders while implying his old connection to the Whitmore family gave him access to substantial assets. Eventually, the lenders wanted proof. That was when Dad turned toward my dormant $4.8 million account. Harrow would not allow him anywhere near it without authorization from me. Suddenly, the last 3 years made a horrible kind of sense. Dad hadn't returned because he finally found the courage to apologize. He returned because he needed my signature. I picked up his letter again. Ashley, I know I failed you as a father. I circled the sentence with a pen. Then I placed the authorization form beside it. My phone rang. Dad. This time, I left the conference room before answering. Tell me they're lying. Ashley, tell me Harrow is lying. Tell me you didn't use old letters to create that package. Tell me you didn't contact me because you needed access to my account. His silence answered before his words did. I was desperate. I closed my eyes. I would have paid everything back. That wasn't my question. Ashley, please. Why did you need 3 years of silence before you remembered you had a daughter? Nothing. No explanation. No apology. Just breathing on the other end. For years, I had treated Dad's silence like a verdict against me. I wondered what I had said wrong, what I should have apologized for, what kind of daughter was so easy to abandon. Now I finally understood. His silence had never proved I wasn't worth calling. And his letter didn't prove he had changed. I'm not signing anything, I said. Ashley, and if you ever contact me again, it will not be about my account, Grandpa's money, or anything you think this family owes you. I ended the call. That afternoon, Grandpa's attorneys sent the relevant correspondence to Harrow's compliance department. Harrow terminated its relationship with the independent advisor involved and cooperated with the investigation into the attempted financial misrepresentation. Dad's lenders were informed that he had no ownership interest in my assets. The financial leverage he had been trying to manufacture disappeared. Then I made one decision Grandpa didn't make for me. I instructed the family office that no request involving Daniel Bennett could ever be processed without my direct written authorization and independent legal review. Grandpa nodded. Good. I looked at him. And there's something else. What? If that account is mine, I want to understand it. A small smile crossed his face. Then I'll teach you. No, I said. You'll introduce me to the people who can teach me. I need to make my own decisions. His smile disappeared for a second. Then he nodded. Fair enough. Over the following months, the investment account was transferred into structures I personally controlled. Grandpa also changed. He finally understood that protecting me couldn't mean deciding what I was allowed to know. Our relationship became more equal because I stopped being the granddaughter standing outside the financial world while everyone else understood what carried my name. As for Dad, I kept the letter. Not because it proved he came back, because it reminded me why I stopped waiting. Months later, unknown numbers no longer made my heart jump. Birthdays stopped becoming silent tests of whether Daniel would remember me. If he ever wanted a relationship with me again, there would be no forms. No money. No conditions. No carefully manufactured memories. And if that day never came, I was finally okay with that too. I had spent 3 years believing the most painful thing my father could do was disappear. I was wrong. He came back. But this time, I looked closer. After 3 years, my father finally sent me a letter, and the most important thing written on it was the tiny mark he never expected me to notice.